Empathy predicts forgiveness in husbands. Responsibility attributions predict forgiveness in wives. So by and large, generally speaking, if a husband has been offended or betrayed, when the husband has empathy for his wife, he forgives. However, a wife can have empathy for her husband if she's been betrayed, but the empathy does not predict forgiveness. She can have empathy without forgiving. What leads to forgiveness for the wife is what's called responsibility attributions. In other words, what is she attributing to him and his responsibility in the matter? So does she think, for example, he did it to hurt me? He did it because he doesn't really love me. He did it to make a fool of me. He enjoyed deceiving me. Okay, if those are the attributions she's assigning to him and making him responsible for, that is a low predictor of forgiveness. However, if she, again, not letting him off the hook, yes, he hurt me, yes, he made poor choices, and I think that he was suffering in his compulsive, repeated, addictive behaviors. He did really love me. He didn't show it very well, but I do believe he loves me as best he's able to, given his childhood trauma. Again, not as an excuse. I can attribute a more nuanced and complex understanding of what led to these choices that he made, not letting him off the hook. If that's the case, that predicts forgiveness for wives. Tied to that, and I find this to be really, really interesting, there was a 2016 study, looked at some of the same variables, but looked at it through a different lens. So here, instead of looking at gender, whether someone is a husband or a wife, this looked at attachment style. Basically, a little different vocabulary here, benign attributions instead of responsibility attributions. But what's meant by benign attributions is they're not a sociopath who tried to hurt me. Or I can see, I'm not excusing it, but I can see how my husband's childhood trauma set up this defense mechanism that I then bore the brunt of. It's not right. I won't put up with it going forward, but I see that. That's a benign attribution. And that's more associated with anxious attachment. So those who are more anxiously attached, they need to make those attributions in order to reach forgiveness. So let's get real here. Let's get practical. If you know that you're more anxiously attached, sensitive to abandonment, you're more sensitive to misattunement, you need those conversations about why. The why conversations. What were you thinking? How could you? Now, there's a productive way to have those conversations, and there are plenty of unproductive ways to have those conversations. But those are going to be an important part of the process for you. If you're more avoidantly attached, the avoidant person, they may avoid physically, but also they avoid emotionally. And so the avoidant person, part of their avoidance is not having empathy naturally for the other person. They have to actually move into the overwhelming, dangerous, threatening feeling emotions in order to connect with their partner's emotions and experience it within them. And once they can do that, then they're able to forgive. And here, and this is going to seem a little bit twisted, but I'm just telling you what I see in my office. Let's say I'm working with a husband and a wife. The wife is more anxiously attached, and we're in the process of helping them talk about things like attributions. How could you? Why would you do that? That sorts of thing. And the husband is more avoidantly attached, and he's got a secret resentment for his wife taking too long in this recovery process. As I help this husband actually attune to hear, move toward, share, and exchange these emotions, these painful emotions of his wife, and hear her hurt and actually sit with it, there is a release within him of that resentment for how long she's taking. That's forgiveness through empathy.